Imagine this. Two people start with the same amount of money, the same job, the same luck. 10 years later, one's free, confident, and calm. The other's anxious, trapped, and always chasing more. Why? The difference isn't in their paycheck. It's in how they think about money. Because money isn't just numbers, it's emotions. It's fear, ego, envy, and the stories we tell ourselves when no one's watching. Most of us are taught how to earn money, but not how to understand it. And that's where everything goes wrong. What's up, book lovers? Welcome to Book Zeal. Today, we're diving deep into The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, a book that completely flips how we see wealth, success, and happiness. This isn't about tips or tricks, it's about perspective. It's about learning why smart people make dumb financial decisions, why luck and risk are inseparable twins, and why true wealth is often invisible. In this video, you'll uncover why everyone sees money differently, how desire quietly blinds even the rich, and why the hardest skill in finance isn't earning, it's staying wealthy. You'll learn how freedom, discipline, and optimism create the kind of peace no amount of luxury can buy. By the end of this audiobook summary, you won't just think differently about money, you'll feel differently about it. So let's get started. Chapter 1. No one's crazy. She spent every morning watching the market crash on her phone. Red arrows everywhere, the kind that make your stomach twist a little. Her husband told her to relax. It'll bounce back, he said. But she couldn't, because 20 years ago, when the dot-com bubble burst, she'd lost everything, her job, her savings, her sense of safety. So when the headlines screamed recession, she saw ghosts, not numbers, memories. That's the thing about money. It doesn't just sit in your bank account. It lives in your emotions, your past, your fears, your dreams. We all think we're being rational with money, but the truth is, we're all just acting out our own version of sanity. You see, no one's crazy. Everyone just has a story you haven't heard yet. Someone who grew up during war sees risk differently than someone who grew up in a booming economy. A person who watched their parents lose their home will treat every dollar like a fragile piece of glass. Meanwhile, someone who's only known abundance will gamble, confident that things always work out. Both of them believe they're right, and they are, because both are shaped by the worlds they survived. Money is not about math, it's about memory. And memory doesn't follow logic, it follows emotion. We like to believe wealth is built through intelligence, through careful calculations, smart investments, perfect timing. But when you peel back the layers, it's mostly built through behavior, through habits that make sense only to the person living them. Think about it. To some, saving money is security. To others, it's a symbol of fear. To one person, spending is freedom. To another, it's recklessness. Same action, different story. And maybe that's why money conversations feel so tense. Because when we talk about money, we're not just talking about numbers, we're talking about identity, about how we see the world, what we fear losing, and what we believe we deserve. Morgan Housel once said, "People do crazy things with money, but no one is actually crazy. They're just reacting to the lessons their life taught them." Think about your own story. The way you look at money, was it shaped by joy or by fear? Did you learn that money disappears easily, or that it always finds a way back? Every decision you make with money is a small reflection of those old lessons. It's like how some people hold on too tightly, even when they have more than enough. And others spend recklessly, even when they can't afford to. Both are driven by the same emotion, fear. Fear of losing what they have. Fear of feeling trapped again. You can't understand someone's financial behavior without understanding their history. Because behind every bad decision lies a good reason that made sense at the time. It's easy to judge others from the outside. Why would he invest in that? Why didn't she save more? But judgment ignores context, and context changes everything. Picture this. Two people walk into the same storm. One carries an umbrella, the other dances in the rain. Which one is wrong? Neither. They just learned different lessons about rain. The same goes for money. What feels safe to you might feel foolish to someone else. What feels reckless to you might be someone else's only shot at hope. We live in a world where financial advice is shouted everywhere. Save more, invest early, take risks, don't take risks. But none of those rules mean much if you don't understand your own emotional blueprint. Because the biggest financial mistakes often come not from ignorance, but from comparison. You see someone buying a new car and you feel behind. You see a friend getting rich off crypto and suddenly your plan feels boring. So you jump. And sometimes you fall. Not because you were stupid, but because you were trying to play someone else's game with your own dice. Money isn't universal. It's personal. It's shaped by where you've been and what you've seen. That's why no one's crazy. We're all just trying to survive with the information our life gave us. And maybe that's the most powerful thing you can realize today, that your relationship with money doesn't have to look like anyone else's, because it was never meant to. Once you understand that, you stop chasing what others have. You start creating peace with what you need. That's when money stops being a battlefield and starts becoming a mirror that shows not what you own, but who you are when the numbers fade away. And that's where everything begins. Chapter 2, Luck and Risk. A man once bought a lottery ticket on a whim. He didn't even believe in luck. But that day he won $10 million. 2 years later he was broke, divorced, and sleeping on his cousin's couch. Somewhere else, another man spent his life building a small bakery. He never became rich, but 30 years later, he still wakes up at 4 a.m., turns on the lights and smiles, because his shop still stands. 2 men, 2 outcomes. One looked lucky, one looked ordinary. But if you looked closer, you'd see both were just dancing with the same unpredictable partner, chance. We like to believe success comes from skill, that wealth follows hard work and failure follows stupidity. But life doesn't always play by those rules. Sometimes you make the perfect decision and still lose. Other times you make a reckless move and it works out. That's luck. And its dark twin, risk. Here's the hard truth. Luck and risk are the invisible hands shaping everything around us. But we only see one side. We love to study winners. We write books about them, quote them, copy them, but we rarely study the millions who did the same things, tried just as hard, and failed. Not because they were wrong, but because the dice just rolled the other way. Bill Gates once said that his school was the only one in his area with a computer at the time. Just one, out of hundreds. If he'd been born somewhere else, maybe we'd never know his name. Meanwhile, there was another kid at a nearby school, just as smart, just as curious, but his school didn't have that computer. No early access, no spark. He disappeared into the crowd. Both were brilliant, but luck whispered in only one ear. Now that doesn't mean effort doesn't matter. It means effort is multiplied or divided by timing, chance, and circumstances you'll never fully control. But here's the thing about risk. It doesn't knock before it enters. It's quiet. It hides in good decisions. You save for years, invest carefully, and then a pandemic hits. You lose your job. Your plans crumble. You did everything right. Yet somehow it still goes wrong. That's risk, luck's quieter sibling. We underestimate it because it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't say, I'm about to ruin your plans. It just happens. And here's where the irony begins. The people who understand luck and risk deeply don't take them for granted. They stay humble in success and calm in failure because they know it wasn't all them. And it wasn't all fate either. You've probably met someone who thinks they're unstoppable because things always worked out. They mistake good timing for genius. Until one bad turn reminds them, luck is borrowed, not owned. On the other side, some people blame themselves for everything. They fail once and think, I'm not good enough. But sometimes, it wasn't them. It was just the timing, the economy, the invisible wind that blew the other way. Morgan Housel puts it perfectly. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. Because behind every success, there's a piece of luck we can't see. And behind every failure, there's a shadow of risk that went unnoticed. Think about your own life. The job you got, the person you met, the idea that just clicked at the right time. If one tiny thing had changed, maybe your story would have looked completely different. That's how fragile destiny is. But don't let that scare you. Let it free you. Because when you accept luck and risk, you stop needing control over everything. You start focusing on what you can do, your behavior, your decisions, your consistency. And maybe that's the ultimate secret to peace in money and in life, realizing that you can't win every bet, but you can choose how to play every round. So, when life hands you a good turn, be grateful. When it hands you a bad one, stay grounded, because both are just moments in a longer story that's still being written. And sometimes, what feels like bad luck is just the setup for something better. That's how the world balances its scales, quietly, unpredictably, and always in motion. Chapter 3. Never Enough. There's a story about a journalist who once met two billionaires at a party on a private island. One of them was from a tech empire, the other an old-school hedge fund legend. The journalist joked, "You know, this other guy makes more money in one day than you've made in your whole career." The hedge fund billionaire smiled and said, "Maybe, but I have something he'll never have." Enough. That word, enough, sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest lessons to learn. Because in a world that constantly screams more, stopping feels like losing. Think about it. Every time we reach one goal, our mind moves the finish line. We tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion." Then we get it and immediately start thinking about the next one. The car, the house, the lifestyle. It's a treadmill that never stops. And the worst part is, most of us don't even notice we're running on it. The world rewards growth, not contentment. It celebrates the next big thing, not the quiet peace of already having enough. But if you look closely, history is full of people who had everything and still lost themselves chasing more. Take Bernie Madoff, a man who built a massive fortune, prestige, respect, everything money could buy. But it wasn't enough. So he crossed the line, lied, faked, stole. And in the end, he didn't just lose his money, he lost his family, his name, his peace. That's the tragedy of never enough. It turns success into poison, and it's not just billionaires. It's all of us. The influencer checking views at 2 a.m., the guy comparing salaries on LinkedIn, the woman scrolling through Instagram, wondering why everyone else's life looks shinier. It's a quiet addiction, this hunger for more. The more you feed it, the emptier you feel. We often say, "I'll stop when I get there." But the truth, there is no there. The moment you reach it, your mind builds a new version just out of reach, because comparison never ends. It's an endless mirror reflecting back your own insecurity. The ancient Stoics had a saying, "He who is contented with least is richest." Not because they hated wealth, but because they understood that peace isn't found in having everything. It's found in needing less. Morgan Housel wrote that the hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. And he's right. Because it's not greed that ruins people. It's the belief that more will finally make us safe. But safety doesn't come from more. It comes from enough. You've probably seen someone double their income, yet they still feel broke. Or someone who owns everything you dream of, yet looks exhausted. That's because satisfaction doesn't scale with numbers. It scales with gratitude. There's a kind of wealth that doesn't show up in your bank account. It's the ability to wake up and say, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't need more to prove my worth." But that mindset takes courage. Because everything around you, ads, algorithms, society, thrives on your dissatisfaction. It wants you to believe that happiness is a product you can buy. That fulfillment lives just one upgrade away. And that's why the concept of enough feels rebellious. It's saying, "I choose peace over pressure." Here's the irony. People who truly have enough often end up achieving more, not because they're chasing it, but because they're not desperate for it. They make better decisions. They take smarter risks. They're not blinded by envy. Enough doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop needing growth to feel whole. And once you get that, once you stop running after more, you start living differently. You laugh more. You think clearer. You sleep better. Because your life finally stops feeling like a race. You realize that peace isn't waiting at the end of success. It's hidden inside the quiet decision to say, this is enough for now. And maybe that's the real measure of wealth, how little it takes for you to feel complete. Chapter 4. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. There's a reason most people who win the lottery go broke within a few years. Getting money is one game. Keeping it, that's a completely different sport. We love stories about the grind, the moment someone makes it. The breakthrough, the deal, the first million. But we rarely talk about what happens after. Because staying wealthy doesn't come from boldness, it comes from balance. Getting rich is about taking chances. Staying rich is about surviving them. Think of every great empire, Rome, Greece, even giant corporations today. They didn't fall because they couldn't win. They fell because they couldn't stop winning. They couldn't slow down. They started believing they were invincible. And when that happens, risk becomes invisible and pride becomes expensive. In money, as in life, survival is underrated. The world celebrates speed, not patience. But the truth is, wealth doesn't need brilliance, it needs endurance. You can make a fortune with a few good decisions, but you can lose it all with one bad one. There's a story about Jesse Livermore, one of the most famous stock traders of the early 1900s. He made millions during the Great Depression, while everyone else was losing everything. Newspapers called him the man who broke the market. But within a few years, he lost it all. All of it. The same man who mastered the chaos got consumed by it. Because he knew how to get rich, but not how to stay rich. Staying wealthy requires a completely different mindset. It's not about being fearless, it's about being humble. It's about realizing that every success you have can vanish with just one wrong turn. Morgan Housel says the key to staying wealthy is a combination of frugality and paranoia. Not the kind of paranoia that keeps you up at night, but the kind that keeps you grounded. The one that whispers, anything can happen, so protect yourself. You see, the people who survive long-term aren't the ones who take the biggest risks. They're the ones who prepare for bad days. They save when others spend. They hold back when the world goes wild. And that's not fear, it's wisdom, because luck helps you rise. But discipline keeps you standing. Think of it like surfing. Getting on the wave takes courage. Staying on it takes balance. If you lean too far forward, you fall. Too far back, you stall. It's that same rhythm in money, the art of not losing what you've earned. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You'll never know exactly when the next wave will crash. So your only real power is in how you prepare. The best investors in the world, Buffett, Munger, Bogle, they're not obsessed with winning. They're obsessed with not losing. They understand that compounding only works if you stay in the game long enough. Wealth, like health, rewards patience. You don't need to be extreme. You just need to avoid destruction. You don't need to predict the future. You just need to be around to see it. But human nature hates that. We crave action. We want to feel in control. So when the market dips, we panic. When it rises, we chase. It's emotional whiplash disguised as strategy. The secret, restraint, the ability to sit still when everyone else is sprinting. Because sometimes doing nothing is the smartest financial move you can make. There's a quiet kind of intelligence in survival, the kind that doesn't make headlines. The person who retires comfortably after decades of steady saving might never be called a genius, but they played the game right. They didn't need to double their money overnight. They just needed to keep it from disappearing. Getting wealthy feels exciting. Staying wealthy feels boring. But that boredom, that stability, that's peace. You can't always control how high you rise, but you can control how long you last. And in the end, that's the only measure that truly matters, because the real goal isn't to get rich fast. It's to never have to start over again. Chapter 5. Freedom. There's a certain kind of silence that money can buy. Not the kind that comes from luxury or power, but the kind where you can finally breathe without fear, where no one owns your time, where you wake up in the morning and realize you decide what happens next. That's real wealth, freedom. We've been taught that money equals stuff. The car, the house, the status symbols. But the older you get, the more you realize money isn't about things. It's about time. It's about control over your own life. The ability to say no when everyone else is saying yes. The ability to walk away when something doesn't feel right. Think about it. What do people actually mean when they say they want to be rich? They mean they want options. They don't want to depend on a boss they hate, or stay in a job that drains them, or pretend to enjoy a life they can't afford. They want to live on their own terms. Freedom is the ultimate dividend of wealth. Morgan Housel says, controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. And he's right. Because when you can choose what to do with your time, you stop feeling like life is happening to you and start feeling like it's happening for you. But here's the twist. Most people trade freedom for appearances. They work overtime to afford the lifestyle that keeps them trapped. They buy things to impress people who aren't even watching. And they call it success. It's like golden handcuffs. You look rich, but you can't move. Real freedom isn't glamorous. It's quiet. It's walking away from the noise and saying, I don't need to prove anything anymore. You can spot people who have it. They move differently. They don't rush. They don't chase every opportunity because they already know what matters. They've built a life that fits them, not a life that impresses strangers. And here's the secret most people miss. Freedom doesn't require millions. It just requires margin. Margin in your money. Margin in your time. Margin in your mind. The reason most people feel trapped isn't because they're poor. It's because they've filled every corner of their life with obligations. A bigger house means bigger bills. A fancier job title means longer hours. Every yes becomes another chain. The smartest people I've met weren't the ones who made the most money. They were the ones who designed lives that needed the least. They bought time, they bought peace. They bought the right to wake up and say, what do I want to do today? Because freedom isn't about escaping work. It's about choosing the work that matters to you. It's about being able to take a random Wednesday off because your kid has a soccer game, or saying no to a deal that doesn't align with your values, or having a slow morning without guilt. That's the real luxury, the power to choose. And yet, it's so easy to forget, to get caught in the trap of just one more promotion, just one more goal, just one more year. We delay our freedom, telling ourselves it'll come later. But later often never comes. If money doesn't buy freedom, it's just decoration. Here's the paradox. The more you need to maintain your lifestyle, the less free you become. The higher the tower, the tighter the cage. So maybe the real secret to wealth isn't about earning more, it's about needing less. Freedom starts when you realize that your time is your most valuable currency. It's the one thing you can't earn back once it's spent, so protect it, guard it. Spend it on the people and things that truly matter, because in the end, the goal isn't to live rich, it's to live free. Chapter 6. Save money. A quiet man once said something that stuck with me. I got rich by staying boring. He didn't trade stocks. He didn't chase trends. He just saved, slowly, consistently, while everyone else was busy trying to look rich. It sounds too simple, doesn't it? Save money. Everyone says that. But few people actually understand why it matters so much. Because saving isn't just about having money. It's about having choices. You can't always control your income. You can't predict markets, or the next crisis, or whether life decides to throw a curveball. But saving, that's the one thing fully in your control. It's your safety net, your breathing room, your permission slip to not panic when things go wrong. Morgan Housel calls it the gap between your ego and your income. And that's exactly it. The smaller the gap, the bigger the freedom. Saving isn't sexy. It doesn't get you applause. No one posts a picture of their emergency fund on Instagram. But that's why it works. It's the invisible part of wealth. the quiet foundation that no one notices until they need it. Most people think saving is what you do after you make money, but it's actually how you keep it. Think of it like this: income buys you comfort. Saving buys you peace. When you have savings, you stop making decisions out of fear. You stop staying in jobs you hate because you can't afford to quit. You stop saying yes when you mean no. That's what money should do. It should give you a voice, not silence it. And you don't need to be rich to save. You just need to spend less than you earn. That's it. The rest is noise. But here's the problem. Saving feels like you're giving something up. It's boring. It's delayed gratification in a world built on instant pleasure. Why save when everything around you screams, "Live now"? Because the truth is, saving isn't about being stingy. It's about being prepared. It's about protecting your future self from the storms you can't see yet. You don't save money because you know exactly what's coming. You save because you don't, and that uncertainty is what makes saving powerful. It's like emotional insurance. Every dollar you save is one less thing to worry about when life suddenly shifts. Here's something people rarely talk about. Saving money feels good. Not in a flashy way, but in that deep, quiet, grounding way. It gives you a sense of control when everything else feels uncertain. It gives you the power to pause, to breathe, to make decisions from strength, not desperation. Look around. The people who survive financial chaos aren't always the smartest or the luckiest. They're the ones who built a cushion. They had room to fall, and that room changed everything. Because when you don't need money urgently, you make better choices about it. You invest with patience. You negotiate with confidence. You stop chasing quick wins and start building lasting ones. Saving is also a form of respect for yourself and for the effort it took to earn that money. It says, "I value what I worked for too much to waste it." And here's the beautiful irony. The people who save not only feel richer, they usually become richer. Not because of some magic trick, but because discipline compounds just like interest. It's funny. The loudest people often talk about making money. The wisest ones quietly save it. Saving doesn't get you luxury today. It gets you security tomorrow. It's what allows you to make decisions without begging life for permission. So maybe the goal isn't to spend more when you earn more. Maybe it's to keep your lifestyle just light enough that freedom never feels out of reach. Because someday, when chaos hits, and it always does, you'll thank the version of yourself who chose to save when it wasn't cool. And that's the moment you'll realize, saving isn't about sacrifice. It's about self-respect. Chapter 7. The Seduction of Pessimism. A man once said, "Optimism sounds like a sales pitch. Pessimism sounds like wisdom." And it's true. Tell people things will get better, and they roll their eyes. Tell them everything's doomed, and suddenly you sound smart. Because fear feels real. It has weight. Hope feels naive. That's why bad news spreads faster than good news, because our brains are wired to protect us, not inspire us. We trust the voice that warns us, not the one that comforts us. But here's the catch. That instinct, while ancient, can quietly destroy your peace. Morgan Housel calls it the seduction of pessimism, because pessimism always sounds more believable. Think about it. When markets crash, everyone panics. This time it's different, they say. Everything's over. And yet, somehow, years later, the world recovers. Slowly, awkwardly, painfully, but it does. Because history, if you zoom out far enough, is just a series of temporary setbacks interrupted by unstoppable progress. But in the moment, pessimism feels like the truth. It's easy to believe in doom. It gives you a strange comfort, like you're protecting yourself from disappointment. But constant pessimism is just long-term fear disguised as realism. And fear, when repeated, becomes a lifestyle. We've all met that person who always predicts collapse. The economy's going to crash. The system's rigged. The future's hopeless. And sure, sometimes they're right. But if you listen to them long enough, you'll notice something. They're never happy even when they're wrong. Pessimism promises safety, but steals joy. It tells you not to try, not to invest, not to dream, because something might go wrong. And in trying to avoid loss, you lose the one thing that makes life worth living: hope. Now, optimism doesn't mean ignorance. It doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means believing that problems can be solved, that tomorrow has a chance. The world has always been messy. Wars, recessions, crashes, pandemics. Every generation believes it's the end. Yet here we are, still building, still loving, still dreaming, because human progress is quieter than chaos. It doesn't make headlines. It happens in labs, in classrooms, in tiny acts of kindness no one records. It's easy to miss because it's not dramatic. That's the irony. Fear screams, progress whispers. In money, this mindset is everything. Because if you only believe in pessimism, you'll never invest. You'll never take chances. You'll never see opportunity in the storm. The pessimist says, it might crash. The optimist says, yes, and that's when I'll build. Morgan Housel reminds us, optimism is the belief that things will get better on average, even if the road there is full of setbacks. That's not blind faith, it's math. Because across centuries, despite wars, inflation, depressions, and disasters, the long-term curve of humanity still bends upward. So why does pessimism seduce us? Because it feels like control. If you expect the worst, you can't be disappointed. But that logic keeps you stuck in survival mode forever. It's like living in a storm shelter when the sky is finally clear. Safe, yes, but you'll never see the sunrise. And maybe that's the real cost of pessimism. It protects you from pain, but it also protects you from growth. The truth is, life will hurt sometimes. You'll lose money, opportunities, even people. But the answer isn't to stop believing. It's to keep building anyway. Because progress isn't born from comfort. It's born from trying again after you've fallen. The seduction of pessimism will always be strong. It's easier to say nothing works than to risk believing again. But every invention, every success story, every recovery in history came from someone who looked at chaos and said, I'll try anyway. So the next time the world feels dark, remember this: the light never went out, it just got quieter. And if you listen closely, beneath the noise of fear, you'll hear it. The steady heartbeat of progress. Still pulsing, still moving, still alive. Because optimism isn't about ignoring the storm. It's about knowing the sun will rise again, even if you can't see it yet.